Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Today we'll be talking about NXT Stand and Deliver from April the 1st, 2023. A solid show that would have been so much better if it wasn't full of cluster mucks. I'm telling you, I saw this coming. This show was solid, but there was just so many bodies in every match, you couldn't get attached to anything. And that's a real big problem when you have so many people in a match, is you have to try to keep track of all of these people. And it's almost impossible to tell stories when there's so many people in a match, especially when the match don't need that many people. But I want to just get that out as a blanket statement for most of the show. You don't need this many people to tell a story. All right. Every good story needs a small number of characters. Depending on the story that you're telling, you may need, 10 characters, you may need 5. But in a wrestling ring, you don't need that many. You don't need 12 characters usually, because you're not going to follow 12 character stories. So, especially in some of these matches where there's 5 or more characters, you're like, are you serious? I have to follow 5 or more characters, and then some of them aren't even built up properly. I mean, you're asking for a lot for a young guy. You're asking for a lot. Let's talk about NXT Battleground first, though. So NXT Battleground will be the same day as AEW's Double or Nothing. The internet flipped the lid over this because how dare NXT run the same day as Double or Nothing? It goes back to the old Bobby Heenan quote from the documentary. There's a gas station on every corner. You don't like it, move to Cuba. You don't have to explain why you have the same day as AEW. Yet they tried. Shawn Michaels, who probably doesn't even have anything to do with scheduling the pay-per-views, said that it's a holiday and they wanted to do a holiday event. And it just so happens that AEW also has an event that day. I don't think it matters if they are going head to head. I mean, they are literally going head to head this time. So it's not like NXT is going to be over before AEW starts. I think both of these shows will be on concurrently. That's going to be a bit of a head slap to AEW if they're trying to run concurrently with NXT. I don't really mind it. I mean, it is what it is. We don't talk about all of these shows who are running concurrently with WrestleMania. There's GCW shows running concurrently with WrestleMania. Tony Khan put on a Ring of Honor show that runs at the same time as SmackDown. And he did this 2 or 3 times already. And I know, oh my goodness, Mongo, Ring of Honor been doing this. It's kind of a tradition. Look, that's not the point. The point is, if he truly believed that wrestling shows shouldn't compete on the same night, he wouldn't put Supercard of Honor on the same time SmackDown's on. He wouldn't do that. He did that for a reason. And he don't care. So why should WWE care? Ultimately, at the end of the day, NXT is going to be a cheaper option, but fewer people watch NXT anyway. Will it hurt AEW's business? Maybe. Not much. I doubt it'll hurt AEW's business more than AEW's creative will. I'm pretty sure AEW's creative is going to do more damage to that business than anything. But just get ready for Tony Khan to step out and complain almost immediately at the Double or Nothing scrum that NXT is running the same day and it's not fair and I'm not going to put up with this shit and the rest of that crap. So just get ready for it. All right, so let's get into NXT. The Kickoff show. They bumped Schism versus Chase U to the Kickoff show, which was, to me, the right decision. It was a solid decision to do. Chase University wins. Duke Hudson, they toyed with him a little bit. Had Joe Gacy whisper sweet nothings in his ear, try to get him to turn. He took off the Chase U shirt, put on the Schism shirt, and then snuck behind Schism, snatched off the Schism shirt, and attacked him. It was okay. All right. I really didn't care about this, so I'm moving it to the Kickoff show was fine. Ava Raine, well, we didn't get to see much of her in this match. So she got in the ring. She wore her gear, but there's still a lot to go with her. Same thing with Thea Hale. Thea Hale definitely needs help. She's very enthusiastic, but she's a kid. Like literally, it pulled her right out of high school, which is something that wrestling companies should never do. Again, what does a young person have to talk about? Like, what life experience are they drawing from? Let her have some life experience first. Jesus Christ. All right, let's move on to the first match. First match, NXT Women's Championship. Indy Hartwell defeats Gigi Dolan, Zoe Stark, Roxanne Perez, Lyra Valkyria, and Tiffany Stratton. I wanted to turn NXT off right after this. I legit wanted to turn the show off after this match. Indy Hartwell winning is a smack in the face to literally everybody else in this match who are more over than she is, who had a better year than she had. And this feels like when Zack Ryder won the Intercontinental Championship. That's what this feels like. It feels like she should lose it immediately. It's goofy that they did this. The way that they did this is they had Dexter Lumis appear out of nowhere and lift her up the ladder to the title, and she won. And of course, this is the Index reunion. That was teased a long time ago, where Dexter got arrested on NXT and now he's back. But he's been on Raw all this time, but he was arrested whenever he comes to NXT. There was a lot of Tiffany Stratton trying to die in this match. I mean, they tried their best to kill Tiffany Stratton in this match. There was I don't know if it was a powerbomb or a spine buster that was on the ladder, where she got her back on the ladder, but her head banged off the mat. And it looked like she might have been knocked out. It did. She wasn't, thankfully, but she hit her head pretty hard. And then there was the spot where Tiffany Stratton did like a swanton bomb off the top of a ladder. I think it was pushed. The ladder was pushed. There was 3 people there to base her, and they all managed to miss. And Tiffany Stratton hit the floor hard. And I was just like, wow, why? Why did this happen? What's happening here where nobody could catch Tiffany Stratton? She just hit the floor. And thankfully, she's like 20 or something like that. And, it's not going to cause any long-term damage. But maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't have these young, mostly green talents. Most of these talents are very green, doing a ladder match. I was very impressed with Gigi Dolan in this match. She was very aggressive. She was also one of the favorites from what we seemed like. Roxanne Perez was actually not a favorite in this match, and she really didn't do much of anything either. She was barely there. She was the champion, quote unquote, but she was barely there. And it was mostly the Tiffany Stratton, Gigi Dolan, Indy Hartwell show. Lyra Valkyria, why was she even in this? She didn't really do much of anything. And Zoe Stark barely did anything. So, I mean, I don't like Indy Hartwell winning. That pissed me off. Not because I don't like Indy Hartwell, but it's pretty clear that this is one of those Image Lifetime Achievement Awards. Like, you've been in NXT for so long, you get to be the champion now. Bullshit. Indy Hartwell was a jobber all year long. She only won 2 matches this whole year. The match she won to get into this match, and then she won this match. It's bullshit. All right. I know it's supposed to be magical WrestleMania weekend. It's a WrestleMania miracle and all that kind of shit. But this is not fun, because you fucked over all of these other girls who were more over than she was, and she beat people who had no business losing right now. And I know she didn't pin them, but it's goofy. And now we have to deal with Indy Hartwell as the women's champion. Again, this needs to be short. She needs to lose this title first defense against hopefully Tiffany Stratton or somebody else. But it needs to happen immediately. Use the Dexter Lumis helping her as she's not a real champion, which I guess is, could be part of the story, is that she's not really a quality champion because Dexter Lumis had to help her. She gets an attitude, defends the title, and loses it. That needs to happen. You got the moment. Indy Hartwell got her Lifetime Achievement Award. Now it's time to take the belt from her. And I don't even mean wait till the pay-per-view. I mean wait until Tuesday. Take the belt. All right? In the main event of the show. Tiffany Stratton needs to win that title immediately. What you do with Roxanne Perez, you have her chase Tiffany Stratton. That's what you do. Everybody else, pretty much, Lyra Valkyria is in the same position she was in before. So is Zoe Stark, where they're contenders, but they don't have any storyline. And Gigi Dolan, she actually got screwed by JC Jane, which is what I kind of called. JC Jane climbed up the ladder and pushed Gigi Dolan off of it. That was the right decision. I'm guessing JC Jane is okay now. Maybe her injury was a work from the beginning. And they're going to continue that feud, which is fine. That I don't mind that. The Creed brothers, Jensen and Briggs, Gallus and Tony D'Angelo and Stacks. This was a weak match. Again, too many people in a match. Just too much going on. And a big who factor for a lot of people. Joe Coffey interfered in this match, taking out Tony D'Angelo, which allowed Stacks to get pinned. A lot of people, when Joe Coffey showed up, they were like, who the hell is that? They forgot that there was a third member of Gallus. I was talking about how they need a voice. Wolfgang and Mark Coffey, they needed a voice. And Joe Coffey was always the voice. He's the solo wrestler of Gallus. You know, he was the guy who was always a contender for the NXT UK title but never won it. I think he wrestled every NXT UK champion too. Walter, Dragunov, Dunn, and Bate. I think he wrestled all of them in top matches too. Like I think two or three of them were actually in pay-per-view main events. So if you watch NXT UK, you know who he is. But if you're an NXT fan and all these NXT Europeans are coming in, you're like, okay, who is this guy? I have no connection with Gallus. Not really. They've been here for a little while now, but they don't do anything really. And Joe Coffey was there at the beginning of the Gallus coming into NXT, but he's been gone for a long time, and you're not connected with him either. So you're kind of like, okay. The Creed brothers had no business even being in this match. What were they even in this match for? You know, we could have created a storyline for them to do something separate from this. And D'Angelo and Stacks, they seem to be the guys who are going to be the contenders going forward, because Tony D'Angelo was very offended that Gallus had one up on him. Stacks was pretty upset, feel like he left down the family. And they're turning Tony D'Angelo's character a little bit by him having sympathy for Stacks and saying that, hey, look, you didn't let us down. You know, those guys got one over on us. You ain't let us down. And I'm thinking, you know, he's such a nice mob boss now. This is the nicest mafia boss ever now. He loses and doesn't blame his subordinates for losing. You know, he doesn't blame the subordinates for losing. So Tony D'Angelo and Stacks, I'm very good with them. Them being the contenders going forward is fine. The question, of course, then becomes, what do you do with Briggs and Jensen, which I'm guessing is about to be tied into the women's tag team title match. And the Creed brothers, I mean, I think they just have hit a ceiling in NXT where they either should be the champions and go on a monster run, or they can go bye-bye to the main roster. I mean, either way it goes, the Creed brothers had no business being in this match. Another cluster, the NXT North American title. Wesley, Axiom, Dragon Lee, Ilya Dragunov, JD McDonough. Wesley wins. So you bring Dragon Lee into the company, barely do any promotion of him, and then beat him in his first match. What is this, AEW? Why would you do this? This really... And then they almost tore his shoulder blade out of socket with a Spanish fly from JD McDonough. Now, thankfully he wasn't injured, but there's at least 2 or 3 spots in this match where I thought Dragon Lee was injured. There's just a lot of flips, very high energy match. There was a triple submission at one point in this match where Axiom had a hold on a guy, and then JD put a hold on him, and then Ilya put a hold on him. And I was like, what the hell was going on here? You know, this would have been, why does there have to be so many people? That's what I want to know. Trying to keep track of all of these people is ridiculous. It's okay if it's 1 or 2 matches on the show that have a lot of people in it. But this is the 3rd match straight with more than 4 people in it. You know, you have to try to keep track of all of these crash and individuals. Now, this match was still high energy. It was somewhat fun, but this is a TV main event. that they slammed into this pay-per-view because they were too fucking lazy to come up with a storyline for Wesley to wrestle one fucking person. All right? One fucking person. I don't need any more of these fatal four-ways, and I'm sick of ladder matches too. The NXT ladder match was the third ladder match this weekend. I know that Ring of Honor had a ladder match in which a guy broke his ankle. Somebody nearly died in the NXT ladder match too, and I think there was another ladder match on another show. I probably didn't watch that one though, so I don't know. But the big scramble matches where there's 100 people running around in a circle, the fatal four ways where there's 8 people in it. WrestleMania is going to have that kind of stuff too, where there's going to be matches that have 8 people in them. All 8 of those people are not over. You know, sometimes you have to tell people, tough titty, you're not going to make the card, you know? And in this situation, Dragon Lee was better off being built up over weeks and him debuting on the NXT after WrestleMania. You know, instead of trying to force him into Stand and Deliver, you know, debut him afterwards. Or if you had to have him on this show, because you just got to have him on this show because it's in California and there's a lot of Latinos in the audience, then he should have been the challenger. McDonough and Dragunov are already in a feud. You could have had Wesley beat Axiom 2 weeks ago or whatever. When he beat Nathan Fraser, he could have beat Axiom then, and then we could have called it a day. And it could have been Wesley versus Dragon Lee, and we figured it out from there. Having 5 people in this match is abysmal. You know, it's not good. But at least the match itself turned out to be pretty solid. It was a solid high-energy scramble where guys jumping all over the place because that's the only kind of match you can have when there's 8 people in the fucking match. Well, 5. The unsanctioned match, Johnny Gargano versus Grayson Waller. Now, this is finally a one-on-one match, and it was good. Johnny Gargano, Grayson Waller, they told a decent story. Grayson Waller is very disrespectful. Very, very disrespectful. Another walking, talking heel, similar to Dominic Mysterio and Roman Reigns, and they are really starting to master that in WWE. MJF has this kind of gimmick too, where, you know, they're getting heat, but they're targeting people in the audience. You know, for Dominic, it would be his family. For Grayson Waller, it was, you know, Candice LeRae. For MJF, it's just kind of like general audience people that he goes and bothers. But it gets a lot of it, you know, it takes away from the match a little bit, but it makes it about the heel, and he gets all out to get some heat, trash talk some people and stuff like that. So Grayson Waller is out there. He's mocking Candice LeRae and her baby. That's a big baby. Quill is a big boy. I didn't, you know, I was like, he's big. You know, when did he get so big? And then they were like, he's 1. And I was like, oh, yeah, that explains it. You know, that explains why he's so big. But Candice LeRae was holding on to him with both hands, like he was going to break loose. And he just might. You know, he's going to be bigger than his dad in a minute. So they did a lot of crazy spots. It was an absolutely wild match. You know, one of those matches that, you know, I think was a star-making performance for Grayson Waller. He did a really good job here. He did a lot of running flips, which I don't see why he had to do that. Like the whole running flip over the table into the stunner on the floor. Maybe we ought to tell him not to do that move. You know, maybe we ought to tell him not to do that move. This was, it was an emotional match. You had Candice LeRae jump the barricade with get a kendo stick. She gave I don't know who this person was she gave the baby to, but she jumped the barricade and started beating Grayson Waller with the kendo stick. Since this match is quote unquote unsanctioned, it's sanctioned because there's a referee that is paid by the company, but it's unsanctioned in so much as it's not sanctioned by the company. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So she's attacking Grayson Waller with the kendo stick. I think she did most of the damage to his back, to be quite honest. All the welts and shit that was on Grayson Waller's back, I'm thinking most of that was Candice LeRae cutting loose with the kendo stick. I thought he was going to attack her, like maybe he was going to clothesline her or knock her down or something like that, which would have fit the story and would have sent this crowd into the next millennium if he had, you know. But of course they did not. Okay. Would have been nice though, you know, would have been nice. Johnny Gargano ends up winning the match. It was the right decision. Grayson Waller is going to be fine. He didn't need to win. I did enjoy his coast to coast from the top rope. It was great. It was about as good as Shane McMahon's. Nobody has beaten Rob Van Dam's coast to coast yet because it's just pretty when he does it. Shane McMahon has that kind of sloppiness to it where it's like he barely makes it. Grayson Waller has a somewhere in the middle where he clearly could have made it, but it was a little bit, it was imperfect. Let's put it like that. So Index meets the Garganos at the ramp, and we have the Way reunion, and everybody's so excited. Everybody except Austin Theory, of course, who was not there. This was Johnny Gargano's swan song in NXT. He said so on Twitter. I think he said so in interviews that he probably will not be returning to NXT after this. This is also, a nice little nod to the PWG fans who are going to get a hell of a weekend in terms of all of their guys are going to go over. So if you're a PWG fan, you're like, oh my God, Johnny Gargano went on NXT, and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, they won at WrestleMania. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I saw them first in a broom closet in Southern California. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for your patronage, I guess. Guys, weirdos. But Gargano being done with NXT is like, yes, finally, thank you, and goodbye. He'll be running in 10 years when Shawn decides to quit and he's stuck in mid-card main roster. Johnny Gargano will be picked to be like the creative director of NXT or some shit. It's probably in his contract already. So it was the best match on the show, the unsanctioned match. It was legit the best match on the show for me. I thought it was very fun. It had the emotional build up to it. The crowd went nuts for everything. Grayson Waller was perfect and getting heat. Gargano was a great underneath babyface, but he also came with the right amount of aggression. Could have used some fewer leg slaps, but whatever. Women's Tag Team Championship match, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, or they call them Fire and Dawn, defeat Kiana James and Fallon Henley. This is a solid match. It was kind of short. Kiana James tried to cheat, but Brooks Jensen didn't help. He had her purse. He was her purse holder. And she wanted her purse because she had some kind of weapon in the purse. Everybody knows that she carries a weapon in her purse. Brooks Jensen didn't give her the weapon, and instead she got pinned. So Alba Fire and Isla Dawn win the match, which is the right decision, because Alba Fire, if she couldn't win the tag team titles, I don't know what the hell you do with her after that. So she at least is a tag team champion now. They tell the story of Kiana James and Fallon Henley and how Brooks Jensen is the reason that they lost. So now the question is, does Fallon Henley blame Brooks Jensen for them losing and then decide to, quote, tell him the truth about Sebastian, which is a really weird name for a guy that you might be banging. His name is Sebastian. I don't know. Does Kiana James get an attitude that Brooks Jensen screwed up and she lost, and then she just blurts it out and tells him herself? I'm thinking that Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs and this Fallon Henley and Kiana, this thing is about to explode, and it's kind of time for it, because I don't like Jensen and Briggs together, and they've peaked as a tag team, and James and Henley was an unlikely tag team from the beginning, and everything with them has always been about deception and, them trying to hold each other accountable and all this kind of stuff. So maybe, just maybe on NXT, this thing is going to explode and Kiana James is going to have enough dealing with these people and just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. And we get to watch this thing have this meltdown. So that ought to be fun if they do that. All right, Carmelo Hayes. He wins the NXT Championship, defeating Braun Breaker. Trick Williams earlier in the night was quoting Muhammad Ali. He said, "We did something new for this fight. We tussle with a whale, handcuff lightning, throw thunder in jail." Anyway, you had Trick Williams do the introduction for Carmelo Hayes, but it wasn't like major. It wasn't a major production this time. It was actually a very tame introduction for Carmelo Hayes, but fun nonetheless. Mixed in the basketball stuff, the Lakers colors and everything, which was fun. I don't know why they did all of that stuff to make him the babyface with the Lakers colors and all that stuff, and then had Trick Williams interfere so much into the match. Like they were doing it to protect Braun, obviously, and this is what Trick and Melo do in terms of they cheat. The question now is going to become, is that going to be a problem? Right? Is Carmelo Hayes going to be kind of, I don't know, taken aback, kind of perturbed that Trick Williams helped him along the way? Because it seems like something a proud guy like Carmelo Hayes would be upset about, that Trick Williams had to help him so much. Trick Williams saved him when he was in the Steiner recliner, and he saved him at some other points of the match too. So, I mean, that's how they get down, but maybe Carmelo Hayes is going to be like, I should have won this thing on my own or whatever. And maybe Brian Breaker will bring that up and he'll get a rematch or something. But Carmelo Hayes winning was absolutely the right decision. People were kind of booing Brian Breaker early, especially during his entrance. There was a lot of barking, to go along with the Steiner thing. They did the Beware of Dog sort of with the in your house color scheme. It was nice, it was a decent little graphic there. I didn't hate it. It was kind of kid friendly, but I didn't hate it. It didn't piss me off or anything like that. These two went out there and they had a really good match. Just a very solid match between these two guys. They showed that they scouted each other, of course. Carmelo Hayes being able to counter some of Brian Breaker's regular moves. At one point, Carmelo Hayes slipped on the second rope, and Braun had to save him. And then they just ran the spot again, which, is weird. Like, you should always know if you blow the spot, you don't really have to go back to it. You don't have to. So Carmelo Hayes wins with his flying leg drop from the top rope. Nothing but net. Then, even though Trick Williams cheated in order to get the title for Carmelo, Brian Breaker showed respect by shaking his hand, and, basically passing the torch. But I don't think this thing is over. I don't think Brian Breaker's ready to leave NXT yet. There's some whispers that there's going to be a Brian Breaker Bobby Lashley match at WrestleMania. I don't see why you would do that. Why would you? Why do that to the kid? Because if he beats Bobby Lashley, then right out of the gate, then you already got people gonna be like, it's only happening because he's Rick Steiner's son, and we don't like Rick Steiner right now. Or it's a situation where you give him too much too soon, which is what happened the first time. He came into NXT, got too much too soon, and people kind of got, they kind of got tired of it. A year in, they kind of got, but WWE is a long term. You're talking 4 or 5 years, 10 years of creative decisions. They do storylines in truly long term form, where your character might be the same for 3 or 4 years. Look at somebody like Bayley or something like that. Your character might be the same for a long time. NXT is short stay. You stay there long enough to get over. You get a title run. You get acclimated to the system, and then they call you up to Raw or SmackDown. You ain't supposed to be there 3 or 4 years, which was the problem with NXT in the past. People was there all the time. Now, you get pulled up to the main roster, what they start throwing you in the ring with Bobby Lashley, and I'm guessing you're going to win, because if you lose, you look like a chump. So if you go out there and you beat him off rip, now what do you do for the next 3 damn years? You just beat up Dolph Ziggler and guys like that. It's like, introduce him slowly but surely. Don't bother doing the whole Bobby Lashley, Brian Breaker thing. In fact, I wouldn't even pull Brian out of NXT. I would turn him heel first. Let him do a heel run in NXT to see how that works, see how that looks, because he might actually be better off as a heel. We don't know yet. We've only seen Brian Breaker as a babyface, and his only character has been, NXT is my life. I am NXT. And that's pretty much it. So let's stretch his character a little bit. Same thing with the Creed brothers. Again, you're probably better off putting them all together. I like the idea of all of them being together as a unit, and let that be a thing for a short time. where they kind of run roughshod over NXT as a stable. To me, that would be fun. If you turn the Creed brothers heel, Braun Breaker's a heel, and all three of these massive jocks are just kind of beating up everybody in NXT and they're badasses, I would love that. I think that would be excellent. That would be a great usage of all the three of these guys. And that's how I would bring them up to the main roster. You know, I would bring them up as a trio of heels, similar, I don't want to say similar to the Shield, but that's the best, I can come up with. Of course, I would put them with somebody who's a little bit more over on the main roster to kind of get the ball rolling. But I wouldn't even bring them in as solos. I would bring them in, the three of them. Julius and Brutus Creed, Braun Breaker, and that would be a trio of heel guys, heel jocks, and I would love that. Not the Varsity Club, but, with that super macho, tougher than you, better than you sort of attitude. And since they're young guys, let them run for a little bit, and then you can start worrying about turning them babyface and making them the face of the company and the face of the tag team division and all that kind of shit. But Carmelo Hayes has a big future ahead of him. He's already been in NXT longer than Braun Breaker has, which is sort of the issue here, because everybody's trying to pull Braun from NXT. It's like Carmelo Hayes was there when it was the black and gold era. He was one of the last guys to come into during the black and gold. So he's been there technically longer than Braun Breaker has. But he's the champion now, which is a new position for him. I don't like this tweener space that they have him in, where he's a babyface in terms of, his character is all about being the best and working hard and not really cutting too many corners. But Trick Williams is a heel. Like, we need to make a decision whether he's a heel or a babyface. At that point, we need some contenders, and I'm guessing we're going to go with the European guys, Tyler Bates and Ilya Dragunov and JD McDonough, and they'll probably be the opponents for a while they build up other guys who are going to be coming in at some point in the future, guys like Dragon Lee and stuff like that. So NXT has a strong future depending on who gets called up. If we're talking about call-ups, then KC Squared definitely should have been called up a long time ago. They've been in NXT forever. He was in NXT during the pandemic. That was 3 years ago. Indy Hartwell shouldn't be in NXT anymore. So I'm looking to see WrestleMania after Raw after WrestleMania, who gets called up, and that probably be a better decision of who's going to go forward in NXT. But I generally enjoyed the show. I just thought it was just too many people in the match, too many people to follow, too many bodies flying all over the place. But otherwise, a very solid show, a good appetizer to WrestleMania. Thank you for your time. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out, bruh.